ghost of an oil tanker, huh? You're here to get your oil back?
Give back what you stole. You picked the wrong target.
They had no idea the tanker driver was a war veteran until she took down an entire mercenary convoy. The afternoon sun cast golden-orange streaks across the hot asphalt of Highway 9. The deep, resonant rumble of the old red tanker truck echoed through the desolate landscape. The arid air carried the scent of road dust and a faint, acrid smell of gasoline. Sarah Miller, 38, sat behind the wheel with remarkable composure. Dark sunglasses concealed her sharp, observant eyes, but couldn't hide the perpetual alertness in every subtle movement of her head. Her calloused hands marked with a network of old scars, each a silent testament to past skirmishes and grueling training exercises, gripped the steering wheel with an almost intuitive firmness. Her practical brown field jacket and black cargo pants made her look like any ordinary long-haul driver. But her upright posture and the way she constantly swept her eyes across the rearview mirrors revealed a different instinct, a soldier's instinct, finely honed over years of vigilance. In the past, Sarah had been a talented military instructor, a master of unconventional warfare tactics who had experienced many dangerous campaigns. Her specialty was evasion and counter-ambush, a skill set forged in the crucible of real-world combat scenarios. She taught her recruits to read the ground, to anticipate threats not just from what they saw, but from what they didn't see. Now, she chose a quiet life as a tanker driver, a deliberate retreat from the chaos. But those tactical skills and extraordinary adaptability still flowed in her blood, ready to surge to the surface when needed. Sarah's mission today seemed simple: transport 9,000 gallons of crucial fuel to a remote hospital nestled deep in the mountains. This facility, a beacon of hope in an underserved region, relied entirely on its generators for emergency surgeries, life support, and basic functions. But on this isolated route, rumors about mysteriously disappearing trucks had been spreading like wildfire. Unknown to Sarah, Elias Shadow Thorne, a cold and ruthless mastermind, had been secretly monitoring and planning an attack on this very shipment. For Thorne, this wasn't just about fuel. It was a strategic asset leverage to solidify his control over a vast black market operation. The confrontation between darkness and light was about to begin. At Trucker's Haven, a roadside diner, the air was thick with unease. Veteran drivers spoke of trucks vanishing without a trace on the very road Sarah was about to take. "Could be smugglers, or worse, much worse," one grizzled old-timer muttered. Suspicious glances fell upon Sarah, a woman driving a tanker alone, a rarity here, especially with the recent disappearances. She could choose another safer route, but that would mean a 6-hour delay. The hospital urgently needed the fuel for critical emergency surgeries. Sarah looked at a small laminated photo taped to the dashboard, a gift from a former comrade, a serene mountain landscape with the simple, powerful reminder to be the calm in chaos. Her decision was made. The needs of others always outweighed personal convenience or even safety. This was a lesson deeply ingrained from her military service. The mission comes first. Sarah didn't enter this blindly. Even before the diner, she'd spent hours meticulously preparing. An old torn map, its creases worn smooth, detailed every side road, secluded rest stop, and treacherous terrain feature, each marked with an alternative escape route or potential ambush point. This wasn't just the experience of a veteran driver. It was the tactical thinking of a former military instructor. She knew if anything happened, she'd have to rely on herself and skills honed over many years in far more hostile environments. Her plan, as always, was simple but effective: observe, adapt, and survive. It was the first rule she taught her recruits: the battlefield is fluid, adapt or perish. As Sarah drove out, a dusty white pickup truck with heavily tinted windows appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Its presence was too coincidental. Sarah's warning instincts, long dormant in civilian life, immediately activated. She maintained a steady, unassuming pace, but her eyes, shielded behind dark sunglasses, recorded every detail: the subtle glint of a non-standard antenna, the barely perceptible bulge beneath the driver's jacket, the suspicious license plate. This wasn't a random vehicle. It was a scout. Further down the road, the CB radio, usually buzzing with trucker banter, suddenly went completely silent. An unnatural, ominous sign that only experienced drivers and those trained in electronic warfare would recognize. It was a telltale sign of an electronic jammer or sophisticated surveillance. Sarah sensed a profound change in the atmosphere, like a predator catching the first faint scent of danger on the wind. She subtly adjusted her sitting position, gripping the steering wheel tighter, and began using the rearview mirrors, systematically scanning the entire 360-degree environment, a habit drilled into her during countless patrols. Meanwhile, miles away, in a reinforced subterranean command center, Elias "Shadow" Thorne leaned forward, his face illuminated by multiple screens. His cold, calculating gray eyes tracked a small red dot representing Sarah's tanker. "She's aware," he murmured, his voice a low, gravelly whisper. "Too observant for an ordinary driver. The jamming signal has confirmed it." He took a slow sip of black coffee. "Good. A challenge. This shipment is more than just fuel, gentlemen. It's leverage." He gestured to a subordinate. "Tighten the net and prepare for evasive maneuvers. She won't be an easy catch." The white pickup reappeared, this time with clearer, more aggressive intent. It maintained just enough distance not to arouse suspicion from an ordinary driver, but Sarah wasn't ordinary. She observed its erratic acceleration and deceleration, its tendency to drift slightly into the opposite lane whenever a vehicle approached, a classic tactic to block escape. She deliberately pulled over at a deserted rest area, feigning a tire check, but actually observing her surroundings with the heightened senses of a hunted animal. The subtly disturbed patch of gravel near her rear tires confirmed her suspicions. A tracking device had been removed or planted. Sarah felt no panic, no anger. Instead, she felt a strange, unsettling familiarity, as if returning to her old world, a place where danger was a constant companion. Night began to fall, and she knew this was when the enemy would make their move. The long, unused tactical skills honed over a decade of combat and training began to activate in her mind. The CB radio, still mostly silent, began emitting rhythmic static and clicks, distinct coded communication signals. Sarah immediately recognized this. It wasn't the work of ordinary robbers. This was a coordinated professional operation, likely ex-military or highly trained mercenaries. She spotted a faint red glint on the distant hills, the thermal signature of another vehicle camouflaged and watching, confirming multiple points of observation. This was a classic pincer movement designed to box in a target. At this point, Sarah reached under her seat and retrieved a small reinforced case containing military-grade tools, a compact tactical flashlight with multiple beam settings, a precision compass with a tritium glow, and her detailed terrain map. No longer just an ordinary driver, Sarah Miller was becoming the tanker Ghost, a silent warrior with terrifying, almost supernatural skills, ready to vanish and reappear where least expected. Elias Thorne, from his hidden command center, watched Sarah. A muscle twitched in his jaw when she suddenly deviated from his intended path. "She's adapting too quickly," he growled. "She's using classic deception tactics. Kale, focus the drones. Don't let her escape the kill zone." He pounded his fist lightly on the desk. "Tighten the noose, I want that fuel." Sarah decided to enter Dead Man's Ridge, a treacherous and dangerous road notorious for its narrow passes, blind curves, and sheer drops. It was a calculated risk, but also a strategic choice. Familiar from her military training, it offered more opportunities for concealment and ambush. The white pickup, now joined by a menacing dark SUV, both actively closing in their engines, roaring lights flashing in her mirrors. Instead of panicking, Sarah calmly reached for her CB radio. "This is Ghost Rider. Anyone copy code red on Highway 9. High-value target under pursuit. Repeat, high-value target under pursuit." Static crackled, then a familiar voice cut through the air. "Ghost Rider, this is Bravo 6. Corporal David Rodriguez. Sarah, is that you?" Sarah felt a surge of unexpected relief, quickly suppressed. "David, affirmative. Glad to hear your voice. Long time." "Too long, ma'am," David responded, his voice laced with concern and awe. "We've been monitoring chatter about a high-value fuel transport. Intelligence suggests it's Thorne's outfit. They're well-equipped, highly motivated. We're talking sophisticated jammers, thermal drones, even small air support reported. What are you facing? A full-scale operation, David. They brought nets and bolt cutters, not just crowbars. They want this fuel intact, likely for their own supply lines, and they know who I am." This confirmed Sarah wasn't just facing a simple robbery, but a meticulously planned campaign with specific strategic objectives. This wasn't about money, it was about power. "Understood, ma'am. Local units are tied up. I'm mobilizing a rapid response unit, but we're at least 45 minutes out." "Can you hold them?" David's voice was grim. "I'll do my best," Sarah replied, grim determination hardening her voice. "Time for old tricks." She began using tactics from her past, creating false signals by quickly flicking her lights and making abrupt, feigned turns. Using the undulating terrain for concealment, dropping into dips and rising over crests to briefly disappear from their view. Realizing there was no easy escape, Sarah made a sudden sharp turn, driving the massive tanker onto a barely visible forest road, little more than a logging trail. The branches scraped loudly. As soon as she was out of sight, she cut the headlights and the engine, plunging the clearing into absolute darkness and silence. From her special side compartment, she retrieved smoke flares, a compact, high-powered tactical spotlight, and thermal patches. This was when she began implementing her counterattack plan, a plan based on disorientation and misdirection. Sarah quickly set up a decoy. She wrapped a red smoke flare in rubber tubing, securing it under a fallen log about 100 yards back. She then drove the tanker down a steep, almost invisible ravine, skillfully navigating the treacherous incline, and then up a logging ramp on the opposite side, wedging the massive vehicle tightly between two ancient trees. She shut off all lights and the engine again, effectively making the tanker a part of the darkened forest. Her plan was simple but effective. Let the enemies follow the decoy into the dense smoke, cause a chaotic multi-vehicle collision, then use the blinding tactical spotlight to disorient them further. This was a classic kill zone strategy she had taught her recruits. Use the environment as your weapon. Funnel your enemy where you want them, then strike. Elias Thorne, watching from afar, saw the red dot representing Sarah's tanker veer sharply off the highway. "She's trying to break line of sight," he muttered, frustration growing. "Send in the drones. Thermal override." When the mercenary vehicles, confident they had cornered their prey, followed the decoy into the swirling red smoke, Sarah executed her first strike. As the first vehicle, a black Humvee, plunged into the thick crimson cloud, Sarah activated the tactical spotlight, its piercing beam cutting through the smoke and directly into the windshields of the lead vehicles, blinding the drivers. Simultaneously, she threw the second flare not just for smoke, but to ignite the dry leaves and pine needles, creating a wall of fire that added to the chaos. The sickening sound of screeching tires, crumpling metal, and breaking glass echoed through the night as the mercenary vehicles, disoriented and blinded, crashed into each other. Sarah moved the tanker slightly, repositioning it for her next move. She then quickly affixed several heat strips, small adhesive chemical patches, to various parts of the tanker's exterior, especially on the side facing away from the skirmish. This created false thermal signatures, misdirecting the mercenaries' thermal tracking devices and drones. David confirmed over the radio, his voice tinged with amazement, that mercenary drones were indeed tracking multiple false signals. "They're chasing ghosts, ma'am. Your old tricks still work." Elias Thorne from his command center watched Sarah. His frown deepened when she executed her counter-ambush. "She's adapting too quickly," he growled. "She's using classic deception tactics. Kale, focus the drones. We need real-time imagery. Don't let her escape the kill zone." David reported his rapid response unit would arrive within 20 minutes, having secured local backup. "We're going to hit them hard, ma'am," he promised. Sarah pulled the tanker deeper into the forest, using the dense tree cover to mask her movements. She quickly set up an auxiliary floodlight with a timer pointing it towards a seemingly open path, creating another layer of visual confusion. She then opened a steel box containing industrial-grade tape, heavy-duty zip ties, and a more detailed hand-drawn map of the immediate area. She marked a broken wooden bridge in her mind, a relic from an old logging operation, recognizing it as a potential trap for heavy vehicles. It was the perfect choke point. The wind howled through the rock crevices of Dead Man's Ridge, carrying the distinct scent of smoke and diesel. Sarah stood tall, her damp hair plastered to her forehead, her sharp eyes scanning the space, ever vigilant. The tanker's headlights, subtly repositioned, shone directly onto a tall, lean figure standing poised on a rocky outcrop not far away. It was Elias Shadow Thorne. He stood with arms crossed, his face devoid of emotion, his cold gray eyes fixed on Sarah, a silent appraisal. He wasn't angry, only coldly disappointed by his subordinate's failure. "You've truly surprised me, Ms. Miller." Thorne's voice echoed, eerily calm. "Your adaptability far exceeded expectations. A fuel tanker, a deadly weapon in a woman's hands. Remarkable." Sarah didn't respond, only offered a slight, almost imperceptible smirk. She knew perfectly well the man before her wasn't just a simple mercenary leader. He descended a step, the floodlight illuminating the lightning bolt scar on his wrist. "But you know the game isn't over. You've won this hand, but I always have other cards. That fuel, I will have it. Sooner or later." "You'll never get what you don't deserve, Thorne." Sarah finally spoke, her voice low and resolute, echoing the confidence of a seasoned veteran. "And you don't deserve it?" Thorne let out a disdainful chuckle. "That hero attitude will cost you Ms. Miller. The world doesn't work that way. Resources go to those strong enough to take them." "Maybe not," Sarah said slowly, her eyes narrowing as she shifted her weight. "But my tanker does." Immediately, Sarah lunged for the truck door. Before Thorne could react, the massive diesel engine roared to life, shaking the ground. The truck began rolling, kicking up a thick cloud of dust and gravel, obscuring her movements. Thorne stood motionless, watching the tanker and Sarah's silhouette disappear into the rising dawn, his face still cold, but deep within those gray eyes, a flicker of intense obsession ignited. He had found a worthy opponent, and their game had only just begun. Sarah continued to drive the tanker through a gully, its heavy frame groaning under the strain, still followed by the remnants of the mercenary convoy. She stopped briefly in a small clearing. Here, she quickly set up another decoy, a spare tire wrapped in a canvas tarp, and a thermal blanket with a chemical hand, warmer inside to mimic an idling engine. She added a small broken mirror, positioned to catch and reflect any distant light, creating an unpredictable, disorienting flicker. From the now frequently accessed toolbox, Sarah retrieved road flares, a siphon hose, and a metal catch can. With swift, practiced movements, she siphoned a small amount of diesel fuel from the tanker, allowing it to drip an almost invisible trail down the subtle slope leading towards the broken bridge. She then quickly coated her tires with this slick diesel, ensuring maximum traction. Moving forward, she dropped a red flare onto the diesel trail, creating a controlled, localized smokescreen. Her plan was gradually completing, relying not on brute force or overwhelming firepower, but on physics pressure and meticulous planning. Every step was carefully calculated, every trap designed to maximize effectiveness with minimal resources. This was the essence of her combat engineering training: leverage your environment, exploit weaknesses, and let the enemy defeat themselves. In a brief moment of respite, Sarah felt the immense weight of responsibility. 9,000 gallons of crucial fuel, potentially the difference between life and death for countless patients, depended entirely on her ability to deliver it. The hospital was waiting. Emergency surgeries might be delayed. She looked at the small photo on the dashboard once more, the reminder to be the calm in chaos. Doubt lasted only a second. Sarah Miller wasn't a quitter. She had been trained to face the worst. With steady hands and a clear mind, she prepared for the final confrontation. The lead mercenary vehicle, a reinforced armored SUV, burst from the tree line and hit the diesel trail at full speed. Its tires lost purchase, spinning wildly. The massive vehicle careened uncontrollably before slamming with sickening force into a large, unyielding boulder. The second mercenary vehicle following too closely clipped the first, sending it spinning sideways, effectively blocking the narrow path to the bridge. The sound of crumpling metal, shattering glass, and deployed airbags echoed through the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah didn't stop. She immediately moved to the next decisive phase of her plan. She drove the tanker along a steep, uphill curve, its engine roaring towards the old, dilapidated wooden bridge she remembered from her training days. This would be where the decisive confrontation took place. The night air was cold, biting at her exposed skin, but Sarah felt sweat running down her back, a familiar sensation from adrenaline. This was it. Sarah stopped the tanker just before the bridge's entrance. With practiced precision, she reversed, slightly angling the massive vehicle. She then subtly applied controlled pressure just enough to crack a key structural plank on the bridge's main support beam, subtly weakening it without causing immediate collapse. A mercenary drone buzzed overhead, still chasing the false thermal signals. The growing roar of engines from afar indicated the remaining enemies were approaching. She had only minutes. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the raw surge of adrenaline, the electric tension of a warrior preparing for the final decisive battle. Sarah double-checked all her equipment. The first mercenary vehicle, a heavily modified pickup truck, broke free from the smoke and drove onto the bridge. The weakened plank couldn't bear the immense weight. With a deafening crack and splintering wood, the front axle of the pickup collapsed through the bridge deck, sending the vehicle lurching forward, its nose buried in the wreckage. The second vehicle, a battered utility van, swerved violently and got caught sideways, its rear wheels hanging precariously over the edge. This was Sarah's cue. She executed her final bold move. She slammed the tanker into gear and with a powerful surge of diesel engine, rammed the massive vehicle into the stalled SUV, pushing it violently off the bridge with a sickening crunch of metal against wood and a final splash as it plunged into the shallow rocky creek below. Smoke and dust filled the air, mingling with the stench of burning oil and splintered wood. Sarah, moving with lightning speed, threw a broken mirror onto the ground, its shattered surface reflecting the sparse moonlight in unpredictable, disorienting flashes. She dropped her last heat pack on an opposite trail, creating yet another false thermal signature, and then with incredible agility, climbed the ridge on foot. Seconds later, she reappeared with the tanker from the opposite side of the bridge, having executed a daring, unforeseen maneuver through a hidden path she had identified on her map. The remaining attackers, witnessing the impossible, were completely confused, their discipline shattering as they scattered in disarray. One mercenary, a burly brute with an assault rifle, tried to run, but tripped over a barely visible thin chain strip Sarah had laid across the trail, falling face first into the dirt. When Sarah reappeared from the swirling smoke and dust, her appearance was disheveled, hair clinging to her forehead field jacket, torn knees, scraped boots caked with dust. But her posture remained steady, her movements calm and controlled. Most of the remaining mercenaries were coughing, their faces blackened, many already zip-tied and marked with mocking words like "too slow" or "ghosted," scrawled in phosphorescent paint on their vests. Not a single shot fired from Sarah's side, only physics pressure and meticulous planning. Sarah Miller had proven that intelligence, experience, and an intimate understanding of the environment could defeat violence and overwhelming numbers. She stood amidst the fading smoke, a silent victor. Elias Thorne, somewhere far away, was certainly receiving reports of this dismal, unprecedented failure. His fury, Sarah knew, would ignite. But now, Sarah only cared about one thing: completing her mission. She had become the tanker ghost, a legend born from necessity and forged in the crucible of tactical brilliance. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Sarah's battered red tanker rolled onto the final stretch of asphalt at the hospital entrance. Despite her profound exhaustion, the significant damage to her truck, the scraped paint, the dented bumper, the broken lights, she had completed the crucial fuel delivery. She simply handed the head nurse a clipboard, confirmed the delivery with a nod, and said little about the ordeal, her face impassive. The fuel would power generators for life-saving surgeries, maintain critical care equipment, and ensure the hospital could continue serving the community. Sarah's mission was accomplished, but she felt no need for recognition or praise. The profound satisfaction came from knowing lives would be saved. Moments later, Corporal David Rodriguez and his backup unit arrived, their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief as they surveyed the damaged tanker and the remarkably calm Sarah. "Ma'am," David began, his voice hoarse, "the mercenaries we apprehended, they're calling you the tanker ghost. The story's already spreading." Sarah merely waved a hand dismissively at the approaching media vans. "Just report whatever makes sense, David. Just leave my name out of it." She prioritized mission completion and anonymity over fleeting fame. The story would spread like wildfire among truckers and law enforcement, becoming a modern legend whispered across the highways. But Sarah drove off, vanishing before the cameras could get close, preferring the quiet solitude of anonymity to the glare of public attention. Sometime later, at a quiet diner in Arizona, Sarah read a news article on her phone about the tanker ghost without showing a flicker of emotion. She overheard truckers at the counter discussing her feat, their voices filled with awe, confirming her silent victory. One grizzled trucker with sharp eyes recognized her, perhaps from an old photo or just a gut feeling. He gave her a respectful nod across the room, which Sarah subtly returned, a brief shared moment of understanding between kindred spirits of the road. She quietly finished her coffee, paid her bill, and left. She drove her now clean, but still road-worn rig onto the highway, disappearing once more into the early morning sun, continuing her journey as an unseen hero, proving that true strength often moves in silence, leaving only whispers of its impact.